So I realized with humans, they're meaning makers.
I could just change my life if I have the tool.
Time is not money. Relationships are money.
Life is not butterflies and rainbows all the time.
The most expensive information in the world is bad information, even if the information is free.
Me as a salesperson was like, I need to figure out how to get behind that velvet rope. And there was only like 8 spots. You were one of them. All right, look at this rock star right here.
Look at it.
I'm excited to do this together. We've known you for a long time. We've had the great pleasure and honor of knowing you. So we know what a profound impact you've had in our lives individually and, just as part of the entrepreneurial community. I've got some questions. I know Alona probably has some, but do you want to start with sharing a little bit about why you wrote the book and what you would love people to take away from this interview with us?
Well, first off, it's great to be here with both of you, amazing humans. It almost makes me think like we should start back to when we kind of first met, when you both showed up. We were having like sort of an after party at my house after an event. And that's where I kind of met you guys. And I think where we really bonded is we were talking about just being a human, addiction, challenges, business. For people that don't know who I am, my name's Joe Polish, like nail polish or shoe polish or whatever sort of polish you want to use to remember. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I wrote a book called What's in It for Them, because that's a question I've been asking myself most of my life when I do things in a way that allow me to bond with other people and things at work. And when I don't ask that question, or when I come from a place of what's in it for me instead of what's in it for them, it brings a sort of different energy to the party, and you get a different sort of result. And I like to think that I have worked really hard to produce more than I consume. And I think, as my buddy Dave Kekich, who passed away last year, says, producing more than you consume is the only justification for existence, at least bring morality and ethics into the mix. And meeting both of you was, oh boy, that's been 2000, what year was that? 2015, 2014? Yeah. I don't know. Somewhere at that time. And, we hit it off. We became friends. And here we are many years later, and we're all in the marketing business. So I got into the marketing business because I was a dead broke carpet cleaner living off credit card. In my early 20s, that's how the story goes. And it's a real story. There's plenty of videos and documentation on this. In the 90s, I struggled for the first 2 years. I was living off credit cards, trying to figure out how to make a business work. So I never learned marketing so I could sell it or teach it or even kind of do what I've done with it that I do and have done for a couple of decades now. I did it because I simply needed to have a business that worked so I could eat and so I could pay my bills and so I could survive. And I lived off credit cards for the first couple of years of my business. And then I eventually realized that you can change the way people respond with words. And before the internet even existed, I was using direct mail. I was using postcards. I was reading books like Influence by Robert Cialdini, who's now a dear friend of mine, and it actually endorses my book, and learned all the old school marketers, much of which, you, Amber, and you, Alona, are experts in, because most people are not. I mean, what we study and learn and read and do, the vast majority of the population, for one, has not invested any time. Well, I call it TAMI. The things that you can spend: time, attention, money, effort, and energy. All three of us have spent a ton of time, attention, money, effort, and energy on learning what it is that we do so that we can make our own businesses work, so that we can help our clients. And ultimately, marketing is applied psychology. And I think what drew me to it is because when I was a teenager, I was really traumatized from abuse, sexual, physical, mental, as a child. I became a drug addict when I was 18 years old, and later in life I had workaholism, sexual addictions, all kinds of addictions. And so I think the psychology part of self-help and personal development and marketing and studying was layered on the fact that I had a lot of angst and a lot of anxiety in my own being. And I've often thought, how does that fit into what I do for a living? How does that fit into business? And wherever there's anxiety, there's opportunity. And because I had a lot of pain in my life, I was always trying to find ways to get out of the pain And sometimes it's financial pain, sometimes it's relationship pain, sometimes it's spiritual pain, sometimes it's just global trauma, which is kind of like what we're going through right now. So anyway, to just put this rant to sort of a pause in it, we met. We became friends. We connected because of shared values in many different ways. And we've had a lot of fun together. We've also done a lot of business stuff. And I've spoken at your events. And here we are. Here we are talking about a book that I wrote that I hope you asked, what would I hope people take away? I hope we empower the givers of the world to be better and more boundaried givers. Because I've always loved the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. But what I've realized, it's not about winning friends and influencing people. It's about winning the right friends and influencing the right people that are aligned with you. And if you do that, I think you'll do better in business, and I think you'll be happier, and I think you won't have your time wasted by assholes. And so I want people to be, and if there's any kids, by the way, that are listening to this, wherever there may be adult language, and I may talk about anything that goes deeply into addiction and stuff. It's totally up to you. You guys can ask me anything you want. Nothing is off limits. And
we have adults watching this for what I know. So I think we're okay, but
we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. I guess we'll find out if we get angry comments from parents. But it's interesting that I remember the first time I actually met you, Joe, was not at your house. It was a much briefer interaction, like really quick, that stuck with me for a while, why I was excited to hang out with you at your house. I went to an event of somebody that we both know. I'm not going to say this person's name because the event has changed a lot. It's gotten really good. And I remember at this particular event, I was brand new to the industry, at least this industry that we're in now. And the speakers and like experts had actually been sectioned away from everybody else at the like dinner by a velvet rope, literally just a velvet rope around their one table, and everybody else was around it, which I thought was very odd because it was like in the middle of the dining room next to the food. And I remember seeing that, and me as a salesperson was like, I need to figure out how to get behind that velvet rope. And there was only like 8 spots. You were one of them. And I remember like waiting until you came out to grab some food, and then I kind of like beelined over because the guy I was working for at the time you knew. And I was like, hey, my boss, I want to say hi. And you're like, oh yeah, of course. Hey, what's going on? And you were so nice. And you ended up walking over and opening that little thing to sit down. They're like, hey, do you want to like come sit? Like, do you want to come talk? Because we were talking. And the person was like, no, this is not for this person. It's for you. This is for like, VIPs. And you're like, oh, okay. And you like finish eating. Then you pop back out later to come by and talk to me again. And you were so kind. I just remember that. I was like, man, this guy like could be talking to anyone and like is choosing to talk to me and like be kind to me because I had some questions and just wanted to share my experience with you. And like, I've never felt that you've ever put anybody behind or sectioned yourself away. You're so accessible and so like so sweet. I've seen you interact with anyone from a server to, a billionaire, and you really do treat them the same in terms of how you speak to them, how present you are, how kind you are. Like, it's one of my favorite things about you. It's the first thing that I ever noticed because I noticed that everybody else behind the velvet rope was very happy to be there and not to be interacting with anybody else, but like their, level of peers, which I thought was a really interesting dynamic and dichotomy to see the difference between you and them, and also the difference between you and them over the years as well. And it was just a special moment for me as somebody who was brand new to the industry, didn't have that many connections. And out of everyone there, I was the greenest, the newest, the youngest, and you were by far the kindest and most welcoming. It was like so fast. I don't think you would have remembered, but to me, it made like a big impression to me, right? Because you were like the biggest person in the room and you were the kindest and like the most generous. So wow. I thought that was really impactful.
No, thank you. It's funny. I was listening to that, trying to think back of that because I did not have much of a recollection of it other than that's pretty much how I behave all the time as much as I can. And it's simply, I hate VIP roping people. I mean, I've had some of my marketing friends and colleagues and people that run events and talk about how to monetize event and how many people you have in the room. And I understand it is a business. I mean, you can't go broke. I mean, most people, everyone does the arithmetic, but no one does the subtraction. And it's, it's expensive to run events. You got to be able to make the business work, and they're difficult, and there's a lot of moving parts like there are in any business. I've probably left a lot of money on the table by not doing that sort of stuff, but I just find it highly manipulative. And a lot of people don't intend to do it manipulatively. I mean, there are nice people that have tiers and have hierarchies of like levels you can go to and all that. But man, to me, it's like the people that become my true close friends, or however people that are more powerful treat people that are less powerful than them, because anyone can kiss ass or curry favor with someone that they perceive to be a peer or above them or whatever. But I mean, at what cost? You're going to treat everyone like a lesser mortal just so you can get what you, I mean, that's totally a what's in it for me sort of mentality, and not a what's in it for them. And I find really the most interesting people, and look, I might have an advantage simply because I spent over 2 years, 20 years, which is only 2 years, over 20 years in addiction recovery. And so I've sat with very wealthy, very high status people in rooms that most people never see, seeing them in their broken states, sitting in group therapy. And I've gotten rid of the, oh, everyone is so special because they're rich and famous and all that, because a lot of rich and famous people are incredibly broken, and fame oftentimes is an escape to mask the deep pain. And so fame could be a byproduct of massive avoidance of angst, and it could be a fuel to drive it. But I had an actor friend who, well-known guy, and he said, if you get into the entertainment business without knowing who you are, it will misinform you. And so oftentimes when people get famous, they start believing their own PR. And so I work really hard. Don't believe your own PR. Everyone's going to be crying, broken, having deaths and disease and betrayals, and everyone's had pain. Different people's have had different levels of it. Some people have had the ability to process it, others don't. So I just try to treat people like humans. And when you're really famous, I mean, I know some very famous people. There's some situation where you can't be nice to everyone. Especially if you're getting hit up with, if you have like 100 people trying to talk to you at an event. And I've often had that where I'll speak at an event and, people just want to meet you. I always make jokes though. Someone wants to take a picture with me or they want an autograph on a book or something. And I'll be like, you knew how many personal problems I have, you wouldn't be taking this seriously. But yeah, that was really nice and sweet of you to say. And I'm just kind of talking about it because there's a lesson in that too. That's why we have a friendship. That's why we have a relationship. And that's why I have a lot of them, because everybody wants something. But when you want something, make sure that your give is equal to or greater than your want. And, my experience with both of you is you never just want something from people. You always show up. Both of you are givers. Both of you try to help people. And that's where you have giver energy. I mean, I can't think of a time where, oh man, Alona called me up and asked for this, or Amber called me up and asked for that. No, you always try to be helpful, and that's why we get along. And that's why if I get a text or a call from one of you guys, I don't go, oh. But there's a lot of people I get text messages or calls from, and I immediately go, oh God, why?
Yeah.
Because you just know they're asking for something, but they're not showing their want is bigger than their give. And so I even have a chapter in the book called Be the Type of Person You Want to Answer the Phone For. And I know a lot of young people that never use the phone as a phone call, but if someone messages you, you think of, why do you like getting a call or a text from some people, and others you feel literally a pit in your stomach. And now with the caveat, if you owe somebody money or you're a jerk and you're getting annoyed because then maybe you need to look at your obligation that you actually have. But if you are a genuine giver and you just look and say, why do I like this person and not the other? It totally comes to the collaboration. It comes to the reciprocity. It comes to the appreciation. And people that don't appreciate you suck. And you guys are very appreciative people. And because of that, that's why I think we do all the things we do.
And I'm curious because I got a chance to read the book this weekend. It's so good. It's phenomenal.
So good.
And it's full of actual how-tos and principles to follow. I've never read a book knowing you that's so congruent with somebody that lives their message. So knowing you through time, there's nothing in the book that I read that was like, oh, Joe's practicing this or in theory, which most books I do, there is that element. It's great information and it's not always in as much alignment. But with you, everything in that book, I'm building relationships, valuing people. And I did meet you at that party. And 7 years later, I remember that interaction because it wasn't boring. It was memorable. Same thing where I didn't know anybody in the room, new person, you came up super friendly, immediately, got me to share, some addiction background with my loved ones, gave resources, on the spot, kind of have you teaching a book, followed up on the back end, made sure I got them, checked in on how everything was going. And that blew my mind then, and it still does. You're somebody over the years I have reached out to for small things. When my dad passed away, you're one of 3 people I reached out to because I knew you always answer the phone and you're always so helpful. And I just have this trust with you. But I'm super curious, and I always have been, is how do you balance? I mean, there are so many tactical things in the book, and there's so much of what to embody. But I know embodying all of that for more than 15 people in my world, or I see everybody in our industry, at least in the partnership marketing side, or 15, 20 people showing up in that way becomes challenging and draining. And with all that, I mean, how do you remember to send the resources, answer the message, check on that person? How do you consistently stay without draining yourself?
It's a good question. And yeah, I mean, thanks. I think part of it is I'll devote what I call Tammy. I write about in chapter 2, time, attention. I don't even call it Tammy in the book. I just use that right now when I'm kind of describing it, is the things that you can spend your time, attention, money, effort, and energy, and to trying to be attentive to all the moving parts of life, business, people that are parents, people that have to take care of sick kids, sick anyone, right? Sick friends, sick parents that have, a lot of things to juggle. There's going to be different ways that you're going to have to interact with your time, your attention, your money, your effort, your energy. And so we have a limited capacity. So if you wear yourself out, and I certainly have, I mean, as much as I would like to say that I am just mastered following up with every type of relationship and being available as much as I can, I mean, that's not true. I mean, I've stretched myself so thin at times. I have given time, attention, money, effort, and energy to the wrong people. So the book is a bit of how to do it and do the reps. Like at the end of every chapter, I talk about dominoes. What are the dominoes? Because I want people not just to get the philosophical reasons that I do it, the tactics that I do, the strategies that I've utilized. I also want people to understand the cautionary tales, where I've gone too far, where I've screwed up, where I've made mistakes. So that's why the book is a combination of many of those things. To answer the question, the more you do it, the better you get. I often say to people, like, if I would have known being successful was this much work, I would have stuck with being a loser. But, and again, it's said to be funny, but being successful depends. Sometimes I'm successful at certain things, and other times I'm a failure. You're either winning or you're learning. So anything that I have done effectively, it's because I kept at it. I often look at relationships where not all relationships are created equal. Humans as humans are important on all levels. However, some people are just kinder, nicer, more valuable, more useful. Some are givers, some are takers. And it's developing my spidey senses latched into how I feel psychologically and physically about the interaction with the person and how much I want to help them based on how much they want to help me. So I pick and choose who I give my time, attention, money, effort, and energy to based on how they interact with me. I will devote more time to appreciative, awesome people. You've heard that line, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Well, my friend Peter says, the squeaky wheel gets replaced. And, so part of it is if someone's a jerk, you got to walk away from it. The best way to get out of a hole is to quit digging it. And so this whole thing of constantly be persistent to what point? I mean, when you deal with addicts, as an example, because I spend about half my time helping people that struggle with addiction recovery while also doing my best to maintain hundreds of relationships. And I know most people can't do that, won't do that, and nor should they. Some people are more introverted and more into solitude, and they don't want a million bunch of people jumping around. And then you got ADD, distractible people like me and Amber tend to have more of a different personality than me and you do, Alona, in terms of our operating system. But same with my girlfriend. She's completely introverted. She's a brilliant surgeon, and a guy like me wears her out if she had to behave like me and do the things like me. But boy, do we have a shared value system. And so that's where we meet and really connect deeply with each other. What I would say first off, you don't need 100 tools in your toolbox. in order to get results. You only need a handful, and you don't need thousands of relationships. I think people are better off going deep with just a handful of manageable relationships than trying to go out and meet everybody. And what you see on social media, and you see people with famous people and stuff, a lot of it is credit to credentialize. One of the things I write about in the book, where people will take pictures with me oftentimes or other people. They'll then do a shout out thanking them for something, but really all they're trying to do is give themselves credit, and they're trying to attach themselves to someone they consider with access, status, positioning, so that they can make themselves look good. And you can tell the difference between a really sincere, genuine person and someone that's just trying to latch on to your shirt tails, or someone that's trying to get some sort of favor through fake flattery. And flattery does work. I mean, it does. So I'm not going to discount that. You can, but it's sort of like cotton candy. It's not really deep nutrition. It's just sort of a fakery. And I know we live in a world of fake. I mean, like the world of social media, anytime you put social in front of almost anything, it could oftentimes demean it. And I'm saying that seriously. I mean, there's a lot of things that are under the guise of we're doing good or we really care, and you're really not. It's really not about that. So for the people out there that are shy and scared and introverted, here's what I would say. I was one of the most scared, shy, introverted, afraid to talk to people. I didn't know how to ask a girl out I never went to homecoming or prom in high school. First off, I was too busy doing drugs. I was in such pain that the way that I escaped the pain and depression and angst of my teenage years was I would get stoned and I would drink and I would do stuff that I would never recommend to anyone as a good coping mechanism. But that was how I dealt with the pain. I didn't know how to talk to people. So it's funny that a person that grew up so disconnected, my mother died when I was 4 years old. My father never remarried. His heart was broken. He was tormented. Every year or two, my entire childhood, we would move to different small towns and cities. I spent about half my life living in mobile home trailers, so we didn't have a lot of money. My father did the best he could do. And I'm not saying I talk to people every day practically that have had some sort of, because of the addiction recovery work, that have had some sort of pain and angst that I can't even fathom, how some of these people have gotten through it. And I get inspired by those stories of people that have overcome stuff. So I was very disconnected. So I had a deep need and hunger to be around a lot of other people. I never heard I love you until maybe I was 18. Not that it wasn't said by my father or other aunts and uncles, which I spent very little time with. I just don't have any recollection of it. And when I was raped and molested as a kid, I was paid money not to say anything. So I never had this view of relationships, especially intimate relationships, which involve love and sexuality. I didn't understand what healthy even was. And so I think as I became an adult and I started reading personal development books and stuff, which is where I first got my inspiration. There was not like some adult figure in my life that said, you can do it, you can make it. I actually had to derive that from just seeking out books and listening to audio tapes and stuff like that. And then I realized, I'm not going to get anything in my life that is really meaningful to me. This is just me. So I say everything I'm saying to anyone listening, that it's like a 12-step program. Take what you like and leave the rest. I'm not going to get anything useful for me if I don't go out and meet people. So I force myself to actually talk to people. I would read books on shyness. I would read books on how to meet women. I mean, believe it or not, most guys actually do at some point. They just won't talk about it. See, and I've done a lot of therapy too. I really have done a lot of therapy. And a lot of my mostly male friends that have not gotten to the place in their life where they're willing to deal with their secrets, because you're as sick as your secrets, and deal with their silent battles and deal with their stuff. They're afraid to walk into a therapist's office. What a lot of them do is they start a podcast, and they think, oh, that's how you do therapy. So, and oftentimes it is. So let me not discount that. Asking people questions is really good and really helpful, and you will learn a lot, especially if you're putting it out. It is a good way to get your own sort of education to do stuff like that. But at the same time, it's kind of like outsourcing the real deep work. You don't do the real deep work. So I got to a point, Alona, where I was just, let me go out and meet people. I used to have to say in my head, I was so afraid to ask, a woman out on a date. I had to frame it in my head that it's not rejection. It's taking a survey of who has good taste and who doesn't. And I make jokes about it. Like, there's a lot of women that rejected me that had really good taste, because I was just not. I was not at a place where I was, So we meet people whose dents match our dents, especially in love relationships, and all of us have actually had pretty deep conversations when we've had, because everybody has crazy making, in their life and in their relationships. It's not sunshine and kittens all the time. It never is for anyone. Even people that have the best of relationships are going to have some area of disagreement, something difficult, and it takes a while till you put down the facade and all that. But there's so much. I go off on these tangents on it because there's so much I want to say about it, and how much can I stuff in a short period of time that people could derive stuff from. But what I will say is, I have a tool called My Genius Network. I talk about it in the book. And if you were to list the 8 most important relationships that you have in your life, if there's anyone you would die for, anyone that would die for you, why are they on your list? What is their skill? What is their capability? What is their meaning? What do they bring to the table? And you identify those people. And then you think of, what is the skill and capability you have? What is it about them that I'm drawn to? How can I help them? And then how can they help me? And that's the approach I take. And oftentimes when I take people through that exercise, and I hope people get the book and go through the exercise, the number one thing I hear when I do it at Genius Network, which is my group, the number one thing I hear is, I'm not spending enough time in the most important relationships. So Dan Sullivan, who's a good friend of mine, he has this line where he said, getting results doesn't take time. It's the not getting results that takes up all your time. So there's a handful of relationships that you can apply the Pareto principle or any sort of, pro and con sort of comparison or analogy to it, where some relationships just bring a lot more to the table than others. And I try to remember who brought me to the dance party. So I remember and do my best to follow up, because it's not about networking is go collect a bunch of things, get a bunch of likes, get a bunch of people to follow you. I have a love-hate relationship with this new world of technology that I did not grow up in, which is, it's such ladder climbing, status pursuing, ego-based sort of thing based on likes and followers, as if that's some way to size up a human's value. There are hospice nurses, and there are single mothers, and there are people that have fought battles, and people that are living in oppressed countries that are massive heroes and massively impactful, and they've got no following online. But these people deeply do important work in the world. And so it's like, those are the people that most interest. Anyone can game the system and make themselves famous. I mean, that's a problem with marketers. I love marketing while simultaneously hating the way some people use it. And so, when it comes to the relationships, I would do a Genius Network sort of exercise, because a Genius Network is simply a group of people that have skills and capabilities, that you have shared values and collaboration. And when you're together, it expands you and not contracts you. And so all of your relationships are, I think, are best served to be like, let me spend my time with people that are easy, lucrative, and fun, or if it's not business related, easy, liberating, and fun. And let me get rid of people that are half, hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. If you can get rid of the half people in your life, you'll have plenty of time for the elf people. And that's the biggest challenge, is like, it's not that there's not great people out there in really deep relationships. It's just so much of our time gets sucked up by the people that drive us nuts. And so my whole goal is not to just teach people how to be better connected with themselves first, because if you're disconnected with yourself first, it's hard to connect with other people. If you're depleted, how are you going to connect deeply with someone else? So I'm able to do what I do because I also really focus on yoga and exercise and nutrition and meditation and doing things which I didn't do for many years. Cold plunges, saunas, massage. It's in those. You have to be the $1 million racehorse. If you don't treat the $1 million racehorse well, it's not going to win $1 million races. And you wouldn't have a $1 million racehorse and shove fast food down his throat, hang out with toxic people, be up till 3 a.m. smoking cigarettes, watching porn, gambling your money. You would be sleeping, you would take care of the horse, you would hang out with the very best people, because you can't fix the world with broken hands. And so I just have to tell people that you're the $1 million racehorse, hang out with other $1 million racehorses. And if someone doesn't measure up, have standards. If they're not cool, if they're not nice to you, your staff, or other people, then you can, you don't have to be a jerk to them. You can be courteous, unless there's such a thing where you have to be like, confront them and be like, you're out of my life. But rarely do we have to get to that level. Not that it's not going to happen. It will happen a lot throughout life, but it's such a small percentage. But if you devote your time to the people that really care about you, the value that you bring to the table, and you have to be valuable and you have to carry yourself. Like the people that do not like this message or do not like me, I make it up in my head, and I think it's true, that the takers don't like hearing stuff like that. You're calling them out. you're calling them out on their own stuff. So if you're a giver, and you are, I mean, you are Alona. I mean, you've been so helpful to me. I mean, especially with organization and like whenever, I mean, how many times have I asked you to help me with the same damn thing related to how to organize? And she has this whole process, and she's really brilliant. And if there's, I don't know to what degree you even want me talking about this, but I'll tell you, if you're one of these distractible entrepreneurs with high ADD and you're high performing, and ADD, by the way, I tend to agree with my friend Gabor Mate. It's a response to trauma. I mean, they're not all ADD, but a lot of it is a response to you had to distract yourself because at some point in your life something was really painful. Everyone that's these crazy sort of driven entrepreneurs, if you go back into their life, you can see a lot of that. You're just really good at helping them think about it, organize it, how to set up structure. And so if you have attention deficit disorder, find people that have attention surplus disorder, which is something that my friend Ned Hollowell says, Dr. Edward Hollowell. And yeah, so all right, there's another long answer to a simple question.
She has both of us to handle. She's a saint.
No, she's great. She's absolutely great.
I was so grateful.
Think about it. Think about you too, though. I mean, think about both of your, like, as I hold this glass of water here, Amber, you're more of this promoter, more of this active. I mean, you like a lot of activity. And so you got to find people who's the yin to your yang.
Yeah.
And you can have really caring, like great, quick start people together, and they can talk about visions and ideas all day long, and then nothing ever gets done. But it's great to have sounding boards. So you need, I like a mix of different people. I even like, believe it or not, hanging out and asking questions to people that completely disagree with some things that I believe to be true. Now, if they're jerks or if they're violent or, right. And there are certain levels. I mean, I have boundaries on what I will agree with, like, someone believes certain things that I just believe are toxic and destructive and murderous to the world. I mean, I think we've been in the middle of a war for a couple of years. It's a cyber war, it's a propaganda war, it's a tech war, it's a political war, and war is organized murder. So if there's someone that's really for something I adamantly disagree with, I don't know if I want to hang out around with them for a long time. What I do though, is I try to look at everyone thinks they're right, including me, most of the time. And it takes a lot of awareness to realize I could be wrong, or that, so I'm always trying to learn different perspectives so I can question my own awareness on how I perceive and see the world. Because oftentimes we can be, what is a belief? A belief oftentimes is you're just not sure. And a lot of people believe their beliefs are truth, and then they're not true. They're just a belief that you have highly convinced yourself to be accurate. So I always try to think, if I had to argue for this other person's side politically or on any topic, I mean, difficult topics, it could be abortion, it could be the legalization of drugs, it could be, gun control, it could be on any topic. I try to think people don't find common ground by arguing with each other. You aren't going to win anyone over by just debating and arguing them. Not that debates and arguing you can't discover stuff, because you certainly can. It's just that I always want to figure out, why does someone believe the way that they do? And what can I learn from that? Because unlearning is more important than learning, especially if you go through a period of time and you realize a lot of the stuff that the political forces, the media was telling you was safe and it was good for you. And then you find out it really wasn't, and it was propaganda. You have this confirmation bias, and you have this investment into a belief that has now proven to be wrong, but you're part of you that does not want to be wrong, that said to a bunch of people, no, this was the truth. You have to surrender that and say, what am I willing to unlearn? And I think that makes you a lot more open and coachable human and a much better student. So I really, as much as I learn about stuff, I always try to approach seminars, events, learning with a beginner's mind, that what if I didn't know anything about this? Can I listen differently? This person is trying to share something. This person, what can I learn? So unlearning is oftentimes more important than learning. So I'm always doing a combination of both. And
yeah, I mean, there's so many nuggets to take away from that. But one of the things I think is so cool in like your book, especially when I was reading it, is for somebody like me, seeing like how these techniques and things that you're sharing can help me go like one step deeper and better. Like one thing that jumps out to me was when you're talking about like your employee being exhausted and you don't know what's going on. Maybe they're taking care of a sick parent or something, and you hear them say like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. And then you peel back the onion and you start hearing that they were up all night taking care of their parent. You know, my instinct that I've said so many times is 2020 was a brutal year for us as a company for many reasons, but one of them was, you know, Alona lost her stepdad, our employees lost their grandmother in a fire. There's all kinds of horrible things. One of our other business partners, you know, lost their grandparent. There's all these things happening, all this loss, and also a global loss that was happening of freedom and of uncertainty and fear. And so you just feel this. And like when I hear my team members saying something like that, my first instinct was always like, just take the rest of the day, you know what I mean? Just relax. But then when I was reading your thing, I was like, oh, wow, I could have gone one step further, which is like, would it help you if you took the rest of the day off to rest, you know, and help you come back? And I was just, there's so many of these like reframes throughout your whole book that really stuck with me, where I was like, oh, I'm trying to show them that I hear them, right? But I could go one step further to connect deeper with them and let them also connect with me and tell me like, oh yeah, actually it would really help. Or no, actually, like I have a deadline. I want to go hang out with my kids this weekend. So if I do that, it's going to push work over here. But now it's a dialogue instead of me just, you know, trying to be generous, you know, and like acknowledge the pain that they're in. I could go deeper. And there's just so many cool things like that throughout your whole book that, you know, for somebody like me who's out in the public every day, like I want to get better at it, but there really has not been a lot of tools around this from someone who's mastered it. Like Alona's talked about, like, you know, when I first started my sales career, it was all Zig Ziglar, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then it was Never Eat Alone. And I read all those books. You know, I don't know those people, but I've read all those books and they've had an impact. But yours is more impactful because I know you and I know this is what you do. And I trust you because I've seen it. And I'm reading this and I'm just like, oh, wow, that's how you do that. That's how you create lasting connections. That's how you know, show up in a way that helps me feel more connected to people without burnout. That's how I identify, you know, takers better, because I've had a problem with that my whole life. And like your book it's really cool to hear how we have such similar backgrounds, Joe. Like when you're talking sometimes about your life, I'm like, oh my God, it was me. You know, I started smoking weed and having sex at 14 years old because I was in so much pain from my dad being such an abusive, horrific person. And like I've self-soothed with stuff like that, drinking heavily since I was 14 years old and partying and doing all these things and in a disconnection from myself. But like when I'm reading your stuff, I'm like, oh, here's like somebody who also like me picked up, I think it was The Slight Edge was the first book I remember picking up and it being like such an impactful book for me. That was like the first book that I was like, wow, like I could just change my life if I have the tool. And hearing you come full circle, like starting from that path like me, and then now having this is your legacy for the next future, not just entrepreneurs, obviously that is your wheelhouse, right? But like people who want to deeply connect with other people. This is at the core of it, a relationship book, not just an entrepreneur's book. And I just think it's so powerful to see that full circle because we have so many things in common. And it's just so powerful to me to be like, wow, I'm inspired. Like, you know, I'm inspired by what you've done with this. And like, just knowing that you're going to be that next person, that's some super in pain person. You know, your book is going to be the thing they're going to reach for, and it's going to affect so many people. And it just like, it really like touches me like at such a deep level because it's been those people walk that path in front of us to come help us, and now it's coming full circle. It's so powerful.
No, thank you. And you know, and look, I want to. What you just said evokes a lot of different thoughts. One of it is people ask, you know, why'd you write the book? And I always kind of make jokes about when someone's doing a seminar, like, because I want to bless humanity with all my wonderful. But most of the time, they just want to make money, they want to get clients.
Right, exactly.
You know, and certainly,
I want an Amazon bestseller.
Yeah. What I said about this book, the thing that honestly will make me the happiest is I hope it stays around for decades. I mean, this book wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Even early on, in my early 20s, I went to a 12-week Dale Carnegie course on how to win friends and influence people. And there's one part of it where we literally had to stand on the freaking table. And I think I sang the Star Spangled Banner. And it was so nerve-wracking because I hated public speaking. And it was, it was like one of those things. And there was another chapter on don't criticize, condemn, and complain. And I'm like, I like to criticize, condemn, and complain, but I like to do it in a funny sort of manner. So I can, my bitching is kind of humorous and stuff. But the thing is what I realized with this is that book is amazing and everyone should read it. And I also realized it's not about winning friends and influencing people. It's like I said earlier, it's about winning the right friends and influencing the right people. I never met Dale Carnegie. He died before I don't know what year he died, but it was many years ago, right? And Zig Ziglar, I met personally. I sat on a couch with Zig for like an hour in the early 90s when I drove Dan Kennedy to a speaking event where in a big stadium, and Zig Ziglar was, one of the main speakers of one of his events. And there were, there must have been 15,000 people in this giant stadium. And it was interesting because he has that line that's quoted a lot, which is that you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want, if you help them get what they want. And my friend Martin Howie said that's not actually true all the time. There's a lot of people that you can help get what they want that not only won't do a damn thing for you, they will abuse you, they will betray you, they will take advantage of you. So it's about alignment. It's about helping the right people get what they want. And then Keith Ferrazzi, who wrote Never Eat Alone, is a friend of mine. I've known Keith for many years. And, these are all different books on how to go and do relationship stuff. But what I try to do is take everything that I've learned. I've read over 1,000, and I don't think anyone should try to adopt someone else's value system. I think you take in and read and learn what you do, and you develop your own, because lasting happiness, and this is something I learned from Dave Kekich, lasting happiness does not come from consuming values and trying to act like you have them. Lasting happiness is producing values, and it's producing things that you do. And to go back to your thing about team members, I had something when I was a dead broke carpet cleaner and I was trying to make my business work. And it was one of the most insightful awareness things that happened to me is I went over my friend Jim's house. I still know this dude to this day. And he was working for Motorola, and he had a party over his house with a keg in the backyard. And there were a bunch of on a Saturday, and it was like an afternoon. Everyone there's drinking, and it's all his Motorola buddies that work there. And I have this carpet cleaning business. I'm this new entrepreneur trying to figure out how to make it work. Every person there was bitching about their managers and about all the idiots they work through at this company. And I was sitting there going, so I think my employees are a bunch of pain in the ass people that aren't working hard enough and doing enough stuff. These people here think everyone they work for is an asshole. And I was like going, wow, it's interesting when you get in groups of people, how they can frame things in a certain way. Just like both of us know quite a few people that were in a relationship, married, dating, whatever, and they break up, and you're still friends with both of them, right? And if depending on the level of friendship, sometimes you are only friends with the partner because of the relationship you have with this one person, but sometimes you're friends with both of them. And if you hear both those people explain what happened, you would be like, are we living on the same planet? Like, they have a completely different perspective of how things happen. So I realized with humans, they're meaning makers, right? We're all meaning makers. Yeah. And when you're working for somebody, it's real easy to see all the stupid stuff that they're not doing. When you're running a company, most team members and employees, like it or not, even if you're the nicest person, for some reason, because of the status hierarchy that is made up in the minds of people, they often make you out to be a bad person, or they sometimes make you out to be greater than you are. And you have to take all of it with a sense of balance. Most employees and team members are scared of the people that they work for, even if it's not like the person's going to hurt me scared, but just like they don't want to screw up. Nobody goes to work every day with like the intention of, let me figure out how to just be
screw this company over.
Yeah, although I swear there are people that do that. I do think there's a bunch of lazy, evil people that actually figure out how to be malicious. And there are a few personalities like the Joker that just like to watch the world burn. I mean, unfortunately, some of those people are running things in the world right now, those personalities. But the point is that going back to, I've really honed developing empathy and trying to be empathetic and understand someone's situation, even when I'm in the middle of running a marathon. And it's really hard when your energy is being depleted. And, almost every entrepreneur wakes up every day and they bumble their way through life and they are slowly going crazy inside. And it is hard to run a business. But the unspoken thing that most people don't realize is most people that are running companies, it's not about the money. Now, you make it about the money oftentimes. You have to run a profitable company because of a profitable business is solving problems for a profit. That's what a company is. And so there's always going to be problems. There's going to be people problems, manufacturing problems, shipment problems, internet problems, financial problems. I mean, customer complaints. Even if you've done everything humanly possible, there's a million different moving parts in running a business. And oftentimes the boss doesn't get much sympathy. Best thing about running your own company is you're your own boss. You can make decisions. You can decide to build on things. The worst thing about having your own company is you're your own boss. And oftentimes you don't have anyone to talk to. Like, what do you do when the boss is melting down? Who do they go if I need a day off because I'm sick?
Right.
And so part of it is I try to be like, we're all humans. Like Ram Dass says, we're all just trying to walk each other home. And yeah, if someone's really sick, instead of just say, and that's hard. I understand if you are a very small company and you are depending on someone and they don't show up and you don't have anyone else there to deal with it. And you've got 14 other obligations. And all of a sudden you now have another 100 obligations or 10 or 1. That is hard. I totally get that. And at the same time, as I've gotten to some levels of success, and I'm very careful to ever say what success is. I'll use the word success because people, they have different meanings of it, but it's not my job to tell someone what success is. For some people, it's building a great business. Other people, it's having wonderful health and in a certain body. Others, it's a relationship. It's being a great parent. It's doing stuff in the community. There's all kinds of different levels of success. What I've learned, though, is as you get successful in certain areas of life, the treadmill of crap never goes away. What changes is your tolerance to it, your ability to navigate it, your resourcefulness, your ability to hire and delegate, your ability to ignore certain things and pay attention to others, discretion, spidey senses. And when it comes to relationships, what I hope that people take away from this book is, for one, if you're a giver, how to be a more empowered, better boundary giver. And also, it's not just noticing red flags. You can see red flags. Oftentimes we'll ignore them and try to run through it anyway, and we'll pay the price for that. The thing I want people to pay attention to is the yellow flags. Those are much harder because, and I want people to be able to develop their spidey senses, because the world right now really needs the energy of productive, giving, caring, useful people. Because when humanity becomes very desperate, when we get into depressions and recessions and they don't trust the leaders and people are being fed all kinds of crap and they don't know who to believe anymore, man, if you can be a person that, Dan Sullivan's referability habits, which I write about in the book, show up on time, do what you say you're going to do, finish what you start, say please and thank you, just showing respect. You will respond to life, not react to life, because a big portion of the planet right now is reacting to life, and they need people that can respond to life. And response is like responsibility. You respond with ability. So if I can, this is a capability book. There's a lot of capabilities. There's a lot of methodologies. Underneath it all, though, it's a character book. I really hope the capabilities help people hone a more caring, and having a good character doesn't mean just being awesome and useful and relating in great ways to other people. It means doing that for yourself. Because if you are disconnected from yourself, you're going to not do a good job connecting with other people. So I go through, because see, that's the part that I can even say it. And a lot of people will think, no, I just need to learn how to talk to this person. Like there's a chapter in there where I talk about Annie Lala, how to use marketing to find a love relationship, how to find true love. And I reproduce a singles ad that is amazing, that it's a model that anyone that's single, or if they're in a relationship and want it to improve, could utilize that model. And that's one of the most important relationships anyone could ever develop, is who you spend your time in life with. And if you're single and lonely, that's hard. But a lot of people are there. But the thing is, it's really about character, though. People are like, I want to find Mr. and Mrs. Right. Well, you got to be Mr. and Mrs. Right. You have to, I mean, all I'm trying to do is keep increasing my level of consciousness. And I'm a total jackass in a million ways. I like twisted humor. I'm distractible as hell. I'm disorganized, even though I fight really hard and I hire people that are way better organized than me. But it's been a battle, but I've spent so much of my life trying to claw my way into success, claw my way into opportunities. And then what I would do is I would claw my way into opportunities that really weren't opportunities. They were traps that disguised as opportunities. Then I'd have to claw my way out of these things. And I got to a point where I'm like, I'm kind of sick of clawing this much. Like life doesn't require what humans want is they want more woo and less ah. That's it. That's pretty much it. Everyone listening to this, they're going to go throughout their day. I want more woo. They're going to eat this food, have this sex, watch this video, do this, do that, pursue this, pursue that, avoid this, avoid that, because it's going to represent more woo and less ah. But there are certain ahs that are worth it because they produce woo, such as exercise. It's more woo to eat a donut than it is to eat like maybe some really healthy food. But the really healthy food in the long run will produce way more woo than the ah that you're going to experience if you keep eating donuts. And so I'm going to get into a cold plunge and a sauna, which I do almost every day. And when I get into the sauna, after about 15 minutes, it becomes, oh God, this sucks. And when I get into the cold plunge, it's like, in the beginning. But then once you settle in, the woo that comes out of it is worth it. So certain things, like you want to do something almost daily that scares you. And I don't mean like be an idiot and run out in front of traffic. I mean, take on something that is challenging, have that conversation that with someone that you really want to reach out to, or that you need to make amends to, or that you need to address. Life is easy if you live it the hard way, and hard if you live it the easy way. People want to have ELF. They hear me talk about ELF, easy, lucrative, and fun, versus hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating, which could also be hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating, because not all money's created equal. But in order to have an ELF life, you can't be lazy. You can't be dishonest. You can't hang around losers. You can't hang around people that knowingly are acting out of an integrity and think that your life is going to be ELF. There's a karmic energy that comes from everything that we do and everything that we don't do. So when people don't do certain things, or they don't stand up for certain things, they're also can trap themselves. So I'm not saying any of this is designed to be easy in the beginning, but if you do the reps, if you learn the stuff, if you practice, if you just improve how you connect with people at 5%. I mean, no one has to, Tony Robbins is a friend of mine. He talks about take massive action. One of the people that's endorsed my book is BJ Fogg. He's one of the top behavioral, researchers and professors in the world. And he wrote the book Tiny Habits, which was chosen as the best business book on Amazon in, I think, 2020. And one of his students took his model and developed Instagram. He founded Instagram. And Tristan Harris, who did The Social Dilemma, was one of BJ's students and stuff. And so BJ is just a kind, ethical, really great guy. And he talks about tiny habits. You don't need to take massive action. As a matter of fact, if you tell someone to take massive action in certain behaviors and they fail, they'll never take any action again. So I wanted this book to be super digestible. I wanted it to be easy to apply. Every chapter has dominoes. And I want people to think of the dominoes in your life that have changed the trajectory of your life. And when I recently spoke at your event, Amber, your Mimosa Mastermind, one of the things that I remember asking the audience is, how many of you have found Amber to be a domino for you? She has made a connection. You've learned something. And because Alona wasn't on there, I totally discounted Alona. But actually, I think I did mention Alona, didn't I?
I think you did,
Amber,
yeah.
I think I did.
Well, there really is no Amber without Alona, so that's,
yeah.
I'm sure you
mentioned but she just was, she was in the back drinking and smoking or something. Me and you were just... No, I'm kidding. She was not doing it. So no, but it's like, so what I want people to do is think of the dominoes that have been in your life. Those are the people that you should give your time, attention, money, and effort and energy to. And if you can become just a little bit better, then all of a sudden you become a domino. And if you're a giver domino versus a taker domino, your world, your community, everyone that you impact is going to get better. And if you're a negative domino, everything's going to get worse. My friend, Dr. Don Wood, who's a Genius Network member, used to be a hockey player. He's now a trauma therapist. And I write about in the book because he has this great line where he said, if you understood the atmospheric conditions of somebody's life, it would make sense why it is they do what it is they do. And I realized not only is that a very interesting line to understand people. I'm the way I am. You're the way you are. Alona's the way she is. All the people that are great are the way they are. The people that are a pain in the ass are the way they are because of their atmospheric conditions. And I believe we can alter our own atmospheric conditions. We can design and change our lives. Not like I think, I know. There was a time in my life where I would get high when I woke up and I would do drugs to go to bed. and I didn't know how to live any other way. And my life was a total train wreck. And you have to live a double life when you're an addict, if you're an active addict. And so many business owners and friends of ours are productive and they're functional, but they're workaholics, because workaholism is a respectable addiction, which is a subtitle of a book on workaholism. And it's like, I believe we can, if we change our atmospheric conditions, everyone that comes into our atmosphere is impacted by it. So why wouldn't someone want to take this seriously? And so that's why I spent 2 years and more time and effort on this book than any piece of information that I've ever put out into the world. It's a knowledge product. And I hope people like it, and I hope people utilize it, and I hope people share it with friends and give it away as gifts and all that, because certainly I benefit from that. But I also give the majority of the proceeds of this book go to Genius Recovery, which is my recovery foundation. And we give everything education wise away there for free. We don't sell anything there. It's literally change the global conversation about how people view and treat addicts with compassion instead of judgment, and find the best forms of treatment that have efficacy and share that with the world. And so that's one of my core missions. I don't make money off of it. I do a lot of volunteer work for addiction recovery. And it's not because I'm trying to present myself as some philanthropic angel. It actually helps me with my recovery. I mean, if you want to feel better in the world and you think your life sucks, go out and find someone who's in pain, be a pain detective, which is one of the first things I teach in chapter 1. Because transforming other people's pain, or reducing their pain, or at least sitting with them in their pain, is not only a great thing to do for other humans, it's a great thing to do for yourself. I mean, oftentimes I'll be like, God, this is difficult, this is hard. And I realize there's 2 billion people on the planet right now whose dreams would come true if they could change places with any of us for like an hour. And there's a lot of pain in the world. So if I get so fixated on me, then it's real easy to make comparisons of what I don't have or what this other person has. And comparison is a great way to be miserable, is to compare yourself to others. But a great way to be happy is also to compare yourself to others. It depends on how you compare. If you compare to what you don't have, there's all kinds of ways that you can be like, I don't look this way. I'm not this young. I'm not this old. I'm not this thin. I'm not this heavy. I'm not this muscular. I'm not this rich. I'm not this famous. I'm not this whatever. But it's like, I've got my vision. I got my eyes. I've got a business. I got people that love me. And there's people out in the world that are starving. There's people out in the world that are distraught. And man, if you could just help them. And so one of the best ways to help the poor is to not be one of them. And the other thing is, so go out and make money, go out and have success. But people that say money can't buy happiness, it's stupid, because I buy happiness all the time. And people that say money can't buy happiness haven't given enough of it away. Because there's a lot, if you do well in the world, you can facilitate medical care, you can facilitate things, you can buy books for people and help them, you can impact people, you can build businesses. And so this message, the thing that all three of us have done for the entire period of time that we've known each other is we just try to empower entrepreneurs. We try to go out and take people that are hustling and running businesses and try to connect them with other people that can help them curate and facilitate connections, share strategies of what works, what doesn't work. And I actually think that's pretty cool work. I mean, I think it's a good way to live your life. And I want to encourage others to take anything that they learned and share it with other people, which is different than stealing it, which is different than plagiarizing it. I have to say this, like there's this whole notion of thought leaders. I have this whole little riff that I do where any idiot can come up with a thought. You can steal someone else's thoughts. I mean, there's people on social media that have millions of followers that do really, beautiful videos, high production, sincere voices, pretend they're monks, shit like that. And they basically are anything but. They're con artists, and they steal and plagiarize people's stuff. But for the most part, if you learn something, give credit where you heard it, share it with other people. It's one of the fastest ways to learn is to teach other people what it is you learn. So every time I do an interview or something, I'm like, if I said anything here that's worth being useful to someone, articulate it in your own way and share it with someone else, or buy my book and read my book and utilize my book. Don't just buy my book. I don't want people to buy my book. I want people to utilize it. I think people are better off going deep with one book, one podcast, one group than reading 50 books or trying to listen to 10 podcasts a week at double speed. I mean, you will get more by going deep than you will by going shallow.
It's a great book, Joe. I mean, I really do echo the statement of I hope people read it and use it. But I just think that for me, and I'm sure Alona would agree in this, is what's cool about this book is that you are creating the new kind of Dale Carnegie or standing on the shoulders of giants, but it's written by somebody who has done so much work on themselves personally. I think that was the biggest thing missing for me, is I still felt disconnected from a lot of the business books because it didn't address a lot of the underlying thing. And me as a giver, I'm still learning. And, I like to say I'm a reformed people pleaser, but in a lot of ways, I'm still unlearning that. And the book felt empowering to me because you claim the pain, have used the pain to propel you forward, have used it to connect with all these things, which was the missing piece. And I think virtually every one of these books. And side note, Alona was the first person to ever give me a Zig Ziglar book when I was her first employee 15 years ago. And that was a very impactful book on my career from a selling perspective. But I think everyone should read this and utilize it, because every single one of us, I don't care who you are, even if you've had the most amazing upbringing as, childhood, virtually no pain, you're still going to come into pain because your parents are going to die, or you're going to have something happen to you, or you're going to lose everything. That's just what life is. Life is not butterflies and rainbows all the time. It has contrast to it. And so I think this book for me bridges that gap. Yes, there is incredibly technical, amazing things in here and stories that everyone should read just from an entrepreneurial perspective. It's going to propel you further in your career and be a lot more fun. You're going to have a lot more right, in that. But I think for somebody who just never saw myself in a lot of these books, because I'm like, well, of course you can do those things because you've never had trauma. Of course you get so simple for you because you didn't, what I mean? It was just so easy. And then I had to go to other books, Nonviolent Communication or Crucial Conversations, or, all these other books to bridge that gap between those of the human experience.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so powerful. And I just want to just say it one more time. It's one of the reasons why I think it's standing on the shoulders of giants, and why it's going to be such a timeless and important book for so many, is because you bridge that. And I just don't see anybody else from a business perspective doing that. It's very brave. And it also is just you. I mean, you are so open and willing to talk about this stuff. It couldn't have been anybody else, I think, but you that wrote this book. I really do think reading through it, I'm like, man, it's not just you channeling your experiences, you're channeling pain and you're channeling something else in that. It's really phenomenal. I mean, not just because you're my friend, and not because I want to give you flattery. This is a flattering thing to say. I think it's an absolute must read for anybody, period. Yes, any entrepreneur as well. But it's exceptional, Joe. I'm fucking proud of you. I'm really proud of you.
No, and I sincerely appreciate all the kind words and stuff. And I also did work really hard on this. I did want it to be a really useful book. I took a 1-year sabbatical last year. And Hay House is the publisher of this book, and they wanted me to have the book released last year, and I was like, no, I can't do that. I mean, someone even offered me $200,000 to do a 1-hour podcast with them last year, and I turned it down because it would have violated rules and I couldn't, I couldn't do that. But through that sabbatical and through the pandemic and through all the stuff, it produced a much different book because I had a much different framing and a lot of different reference. And I've interviewed over 1,000 people for over an hour to 90 minutes. I have done a lot of work. I've read over 1,000 books. And I wanted to put together a useful book. I wanted to put together a book that would be a domino for people. I wanted to share other dominoes, and I wanted to edify the givers, and I wanted to talk shit about the takers. and I believe it accomplishes that. And every single testimonial on this book, every book blurb that is on the book, on the website, has only come from someone that has read the entire book. And I had very famous people that said, oh, write me up 3 blurbs, or write me up what you want me to say. And every one of them, I'm like, nope, I'm not using any, because you have all these books that are written, people using testimonials from people that have never even read the damn book. And if someone wants to give someone a character testimonial because they know them, that's one thing. But I don't pretend to I'm going to, oh, this book is the greatest thing I've ever read if I haven't read the book. And I also said to people, only write me a blurb if you like the book. And I've got Stephen Pressfield's one of my favorite authors. He read my book. He gave me a great testimonial. Chris Voss, one of the top
Love
former
him.
international FBI hostage negotiator, top negotiation guy in the world right now. He read the whole book, loves the book. He's using my ELF system for high indicators of half and high indicators of ELF. So he's identified ways when people say things if they're going to be ELF or half. And so we write about that.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love Never Split the Difference. One of like my favorite all-time books. So that's just so cool.
Well, it's great too, because he's a
Yeah.
Genius Network member. And like I was interviewing him at my last event and he was like saying, you know, who he spends time with. And I wanted to make sure everyone in the room know that he pays to be in Genius Network. And I asked him, I go, well, why do you pay to be in this group? And he said, because how much you've connected me and how many people I meet here. And, you know, Genius Network is really an extension. It's a group for givers. You know, it's like my group for givers, but I think everyone should have their own Genius Network. All of your clients are part of your Genius Network. You bring together genius and capabilities and you curate it. And that's what you offer to people. And then Robert Cialdini, the father of influence, you know, he read the whole book and I'm like, how great is it where I'm writing a book on how to develop relationships and that I have the top behavioral research professor from Stanford, the father of influence, Robert Cialdini, the top negotiation guy, Chris Voss, some of the greatest, you know, Vern Harnish, who founded EO. You know, I just spoke at his event last week and, you know, he's buying my book for all of his clients and the high level clients that he has. And he, you know, said the best business book I've read all year. He's choosing it as that.
Huge.
Even reprinted it in the back of his new version of Scaling Up. And he said that it's one of the most important books of the century. And I'm like, geez, I hope the public responds to it. So I'm curious to see what sort of, you know, because this book is right when we're doing this interview, this book is like right coming out. And it's, you know, I'm curious to see the negative ones and where people, it'll probably be all the takers that just like talking shit about me.
Just haters, man. But they don't have anything positive to say anyways, but I don't think they'll do it publicly. To me, I think that's a good.
Let me say this, because I know it's probably hard to shut me up right now. If people really care about you and they want to offer constructive criticism or point something out, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I mean, we all have to have difficult conversations. And I write about that in the book. Like, how do you address dishonesty? How do you address difficult people? How do you deal with takers? There's a whole section I wrote on intimidation. You know, you are going to oftentimes have to grapple and shit talk with people that are trying to size you up. You know, how do you deal with the people that really do want to work with you, but they're playing sort of manipulation games? And you have to decide, you can't be nice to everyone. You have to deal with people at the level at which they respond. And some people don't respond well to kindness. And so, you know, part of it in the process of writing this book, I was trying to size up, like, what are all the different scenarios that could be useful to someone and how do I address them in a way? And it's funny here, I'll just tell you out loud. I like had a point I was going to make. Then I started going down this path and I completely forgot the point that I was going to make. But instead of just trying to cover it up with something else, which I could easily do because my brain is quick, I'm just going to tell you straight out. You know, oftentimes you don't, what was I going to say? What is the thing here? So people have asked me, you know, why'd you write this book? And I say, because I will forget a lot of this stuff. And I actually wanted to document it. And oftentimes, like I had a guy that I met in 12 Steps who wasn't my sponsor. He was a guy that sponsored a bunch of other people. And he was sponsoring so many people, similar to Alona's question of how do you manage all these sort of relationships? And I said to the guy, why do you sponsor so many people? And he said, well, I've been sober for many years. And there are times where I have cravings or I feel like jumping off a cliff. I feel like I'm going to go off the deep end and I want to go back to the people that I've sponsored and call them and say, remind me what I told you when you were in this state. And it becomes a reminder service. So in a lot of ways, I wrote the book for others to navigate the sharks. You know, my buddy Harvey McKay, who wrote years ago how to swim with the sharks without being eaten alive. I not only show people how to swim with sharks, but how to spear the ones and not even go into the shark pit. That's one thing. But the others, you know, just like I wanted it for myself because it really, you know, I'll tell you, when you have to sit and write a book like this and put 2 years into it and really reflect during a pandemic and during a sabbatical and during all the stuff, you know, it really makes you think about your own stuff. And so in a lot of ways, I got as much value out of writing this book as I hope people that read it get out of it. And I hope people apply it. And I hope to question, you know, and if I look back and say, oh, you know, that was a dumb way to think about it. Because I've been selfish and self-centered and desperate and codependent and addicted. And I've been generous and caring and useful and helpful. And I want to spend as much of my time into the expanding parts of the world versus contracting. I want this, I tell the story of, the Olympic English rowing team, back in 2000. Does this make the boat go faster? They ask themselves the question, if we eat that pizza, does that make the boat go faster? If it doesn't, don't eat the pizza. If I stay up late, is that going to make the boat go faster? If I eat if I don't train today, is that, so I frame it as, does this make the relationship grow? So is this growing you? Does it grow the relationship? And I'll be really proud if I know that I've written something that even when I'm long gone will still be a roadmap, because that's the beauty. And I would encourage people out there, hopefully you can afford my book. It's not expensive. I've put a lot of work into this, and it's called What's in It for Them. And you can get it at what'sinitforthem.com. That's a website.
You can scan that QR code.
Yeah, if you're watching this on video,
right here.
I can't wait till everyone steals my idea. So Lauren, who's on my team, she put together this, but I said, let's do a backdrop with a QR code on it and a picture of the book. And so everyone that I've done has seen this, oh my God, I'm going to do this. So this is my idea. So
give me credit. Or is it Lauren? I mean, I don't know.
No.
By Joe Polish at the bottom.
Yeah. No,
what it is,
really good.
It's a collaboration, because had I not have Lauren, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I'm like clueless at this stuff. The design is from Gaping Void. So my buddies at Gaping Void, Hugh McLeod and Jason Corman, and their team, they did a great job with the cover. And this is a completely different cover. I mean, Hay House was questioning it. And then Reed Tracy, who's the owner of Hay House, he had me on his podcast last week. And he's like, I love the cover. It's unique. And so I hope people like the cover, but it's about connection. It's about tying in all the little dots. And the key takeaway is go throughout the world, not focus on what's in it for you, but what's in it for them. There's nothing wrong with pursuing opportunities. It's different than being an opportunist. If you're an opportunist and you have a taker energy, you may get deals, you may get what you want, you may be pushy, but you're freaking annoying. And if you really show up in a way to where what's in it for them and you focus that way, you'll do well. And if someone has no money whatsoever, I give away a book called Life Gives to the Giver, and it's at joesfreebook.com. And people can download that for free. And it's not going to it's not going to give you a crappy book that puts you into an upsell funnel that you have to buy something to get value. It actually is a good book. And we just, bond with people and we send out really good emails. So I have a whole model. And if you guys haven't registered it yet, make sure you get your name free book so that people can go to alonasfreebook.com and get hers. And it kind of forces her to put it together. But I give in my marketing and advertising, I think all of us do it. We make our advertising and our marketing for what we sell valuable, so that if people find the marketing valuable, how valuable will they find the stuff you actually charge for? And so that's another way to think of what's in it for them. When I was a dead broke carpet cleaner, I would teach people how to choose a carpet cleaner. I had a consumer awareness guide on, how to choose a carpet cleaner. Question 8 mistakes to avoid when choosing a carpet cleaner, 6 costly misconceptions about carpet cleaning, 7 questions to ask a carpet cleaner before inviting them to your home, crawling critters and crud, a guide to the slime, grime, and livestock, the seeping, creeping, and galloping through your carpet. I literally would teach people how to choose a carpet cleaner so they realized there's more to hiring a carpet cleaner than low price. And I made my marketing valuable. And by learning that, I was like, wow, I figured out how to successfully sell ethically without using bait and switch or low price. I learned how to sell ethically and effectively something nobody wants to buy, because there's not a single person listening to this that would ever be like, I hope the cat pisses in the corner, so I can call a carpet cleaner. Some things we go and buy. We go buy food, we go buy clothes, we go buy concerts, we go buy things that are really exciting. Certain things need to be sold. And so if you're going to be out there in the world selling stuff, like we have expensive mastermind and discussion groups that we sell. No one wakes up every day and say, I really need a $25,000 mastermind group. Like I need a pair of, Lululemon shorts. It's like they don't think of it like that stuff needs to be sold. And so the way you do it is you bond with people, you create value, and how does one do that? Relationships. And that's the whole point of the book. Everything in life, people say time is money. I've never hit the alarm on my phone or a real alarm before phones existed, and there was a pile of money sitting there. it's money's in relationships. Like, time is not money. Relationships are money. And how you use your time, attention, money, effort, and energy within relationships has to do with if you love your job, your career, your business, the people you are in relationships with, that it's all about relationships. And so I wrote a relationship book from a guy who was very disconnected and didn't know how to do relationships. But because of that, I was able to I was able to learn a lot, and I was able to discover a lot. And I was the most expensive information in the world is bad information, even if the information is free. So I learned what to avoid and what to pay attention to, and that's what ended up becoming What's in It for Them. And
Joe, thank
that's
you.
Great book.
Thank you.
I love you, Joe.
I love you.
Well, the last note on the book is what you guys touched on. It's sold as a networking book, but really it's how to be a better human. And one thing I really took away from it is it's for extroverts like Amber, how to connect with more people. It's for introverts like me, how to go deeper with tactical things. It's for people who have a relationship business or they have relationships. I mean, it's phenomenal. I thought I was picking up a business networking book, but really it's an overall just how to be a better human, how to connect, and how to show up for the people already in your world. So it really is one of the best books out there because it's that fundamental human need that we all have, and it speaks to everybody. It doesn't matter what you are at. It just gives you tactical advice. And thank you for writing this and putting 30 years of information on paper in such a precise way, stories that really hit, metaphors that really explain, dominoes to take away. I mean, it's so well organized. You could see there was years of work put into it. It wasn't just a marketing book written to boost you. It was really better humanity.
Yeah.
There was no extra sentence in that book. It was very well done, very concise. There was not one bit of fluff in there just to hear yourself talk. It was, it's excellent. It's excellent, Joe.
Thank you. And I even recorded the audiobook in my own voice, which was, my God, that was a project. I have a whole new respect for people that have to record their whole audiobooks, but I spent 3 days in the studio having to get, because I'm a talker, right? But when you have to really just get the word, generously, and well, there's several words in there that you'll hear that I had difficulty with, but I think I did a pretty good job. And so, so thank you. And all the edification, I really appreciate that. You guys have said very nice, kind things about me. And I do want people to know this is a real relationship. This is not me just doing interviews with a couple of people and pimping a book here. This is if you like, and it sounds good about what we talk about with each other, because we operate this way. We have a shared value system. And I hope everyone can develop deep, meaningful relationships with people that they genuinely, that's the word that I would get stuck on, care about each other. And I really, it's just fun. It's fun talking to you guys. And I really hope that whoever hears this takes away a lot of value from it. And they do good work in the world, because the world needs more givers that are awesome and protected.
Buy the book. If you trust me or Alona, buy the book. Just honestly, because it's exceptional. Yeah, Joe. And I'm excited to reread it. And if nothing else, I'll just, I actually have to take care of my $1 million racehorse brain, because I'm doing a therapy call right now. But if nothing else, the only thing I want to just share with you, Joe, my last piece, and if Alona has anything, is you've already done it, because you start thinking about all the people who've already read your book, who have so much influence over the future generation and have been influenced by this, Robert Cialdini and BJ Fogg and Chris Voss and all these other people, and us who are out there working with people and influencing business owners or students or, whatever it is, have already been so affected and impacted by this. So if it never left, anybody else's hand, if it never left an Amazon warehouse, no one ever saw it again, it's already had such a big ripple effect. And seeing the reaction from us and, so many, Vern, think of how many books he gets every single year as the founder of EO, like hundreds probably, to take this on, has already made such a big impact. And I just can't wait to see what happens in, the future. It's being released in a week. And so it's just really exciting. We're honored to be a small part of getting it out into the public and into our audience, but it's just already made such a big impact on me and Alona. And I'm just so excited for other people to get their hands on it.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. Love you. And
love you, Joe.
You want the famous last words, the introvert, Alona? Is there anything else you want to say? Or you want me to be the loud mouth, obnoxious person at the end?
You had a tear show, Joe.
You want me to start crying right now? Let me find the real quick. No, but it's been fun. And so what's in it for them, everyone? Just even if you never read the book, just remember that question. If you read the book, it'll help you understand really what that means. It's not just a question, it is a behavior. And like you said, it's how to build a better human being. That's really what I want. And I think the world needs it right now. And I hope it'll give you an advantage that people that don't think this way, they don't realize what they're missing out on, because while the takers of the world think they're getting the better end of the deal, they can't sleep with themselves at night, because I really want this book to help people sleep better, because they feel much better about who they are. And givers get really jaded because you will be taken advantage of and people will attempt to hurt you. You become a magnet for takers. But I hope to give people a bit of a force field and a shield so that you can not get jaded and you can really feel acknowledged about being a good human, because the good humans ultimately, they're the ones that make the biggest impact, encourage people. And so I want people to encourage themselves so that they can do a better job of encouraging others. And so I greatly appreciate the conversation. Thank you. This was awesome. And I look forward to hearing whatever comments and feedback or anything that anyone has on this. So thank you guys.
Of course, Joe. Anything for you.
Mm-hmm.